This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
Previously on Starship Sabers and Scoundrels.
Hello, Scoundrels. This is Kate DeBingo from Blabba the Hut, and you're listening to Dennis and Taxis on Starship Sabers and Scoundrels.
Friends of the Park, a public interest group, sued to block the construction of the museum there.
I think we can sacrifice one or two parks for the greatness of the Lucas Museum.
Gosh, this thing has got a lot going on here.
I kind of got a thing for Star Wars brunette. Just saying.
Well, sure. If you do something that upsets them, then they're probably going to apprehend you and punish you.
She looks very believable and maybe slightly vulnerable, yet strong in her own way.
Okay.
Good job, little buddy. You really used it. You really got him. So this is like the Star Wars equivalent of Bender.
Who is that guy? Your mama.
You know.
Good job. That was a nice impression.
Thank you very much. It's magic. Shut up.
That's probably naive.
He once won a lightsaber duel with only a flashlight. Stars and supernovas plot their courses around him. Size matters not, but it's a nice benefit. He does. When he speaks Huttese, it becomes a Romance language. He knows. With him, the odds of successfully navigating an asteroid field are 1-to-1. He is the most interesting Sith in the galaxy.
I always drink, and sometimes when I'm desperate, I drink Dulce Spear. Stay seathy, my fools.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, that was.
And I think that's why I'm excited about it.
Scoundrels, have you felt it? There's been an awakening, and it is episode 7 of SQ Pod. Here is what is coming up on our show. Another new Star Wars novel has been released, Aftermath Life Debt. We'll discuss that and other recent happenings in the news. August is almost upon us. There are Star Wars celebrities to be found, autographs to collect, and pictures to be taken. Taxis is here to tell you where to find them. Star Wars Celebration is a wrap. We'll discuss the news of what is to come in the Star Wars universe as revealed in London this past weekend in our hypothetical segment. We're ready, Scoundrels. Are you? Welcome to episode 7 of Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels. Well, this is quite the juxtaposition.
Why, whatever do you mean, old chap?
Well, just a little while ago, we were playing American patriotic music.
And of course, you're questioning today's selection.
No, it makes sense, given all the hot Star Wars news from Celebration Europe.
Indeed. I'm chuffed to bits.
What?
The sun never sets on the Star Wars empire.
What are you doing?
Sir, I'm certain I don't understand your inference, sir.
The accent?
Yeah?
It's not working.
Cheerio.
This isn't Techno Retro Dads.
Then I say good day to you, sir. Greetings, good, strong scoundrels, and welcome to the podcast that advocates that the Imperials should never be cast with American accents. I'm your Imperial Milk Stout of a co-host, Darth Taxis, and with me is the Mary Poppins to my Bert, and the tea to my crumpets, Dennis, the Phantom Menace, Keithley. Dennis?
Taxis, when you dive into a theme, you dive in with both feet. That was impressive.
Thank you.
Oh, you doing all right?
Yeah, doing just fine. How about you? There was a lot of excitement this weekend, huh?
Yeah, I feel like I've spent most of the weekend glued to my monitor watching the live stream from Celebration.
Man, if you're exhausted just from that, I gotta tell you, I mean, it's fun exhaustion, but it's tenfold when you're there on the show floor. I mean, there's just so much going on all the time. That's why it's good to be a Lord of Chaos in such a setting, you might say.
Right. Well, I'm had a good time watching it, and bring on Celebration Orlando. Let's get to the news. As if Celebration Europe wasn't enough to keep Star Wars fans busy, there have been other things going on in the Star Wars galaxy. Taxis, what do we have first?
Oh, yeah. Well, one by one, all the actors are completing filming on Episode 8. Anthony Daniels, John Boyega, Daisy Ridley, and Mark Hamill have all taken to social media to announce that they have completed filming on the upcoming release. All filming is scheduled to be complete on July 22nd. Happens to have a little significance to this little Dark Lord of Ball of Love. Despite this, the cast has had their official wrap party in London on July 10th. If you want to see pictures, they're out there on the internet. And everybody knows where that is, Dennis.
That's true. You know, I'm wondering if at this time next year, the internet's going to go into uproar when they announce the reshoots for Episode 8.
There's reshoots? What have you heard?
That the movie is largely unusable, and that 60% of it was blurry. It's a big panic. But I mean, wow, they got a lot of time to finish up this movie.
They really do. I wonder if that means there's going to be a lot of post production, like chicanery and trickery going on.
Well, all I can say is we better have a trailer at Celebration Orlando.
Dang straight.
All right. Well, Aftermath, Life Debt hit shelves at bookstores across the country on July 12th. In the follow-up to Chuck Wendig's 2015 novel, Aftermath, Nora Wexley, her son Temmin, Singer, Jas, and Jom take a mission from Princess Leia to help a familiar hero. Like Aftermath, this story is set in the years after Return of the Jedi and chronicles developments in the galaxy after the defeat of Darth Vader and the Emperor. Have you had a chance to dive into this yet?
I'm about, I'm making good progress. I'm about 5 chapters in on it, but I'm going to burn through the rest of it, I swear, because I really want to talk about this on our next show. Yeah.
Well, I finished it. I gotta say, so far, this may be my favorite novel of the new canon.
Really?
Yeah. Before I settle on that pronouncement, I'm going to let it age just a little bit because, there's a couple of others that I like quite a bit, but this was the book that I was hoping Aftermath would be. And I really dug it.
Well, I have to tell you, it feels like, okay, I know immediately who the characters are from Aftermath. And so it feels like it picks up faster. Like it caught my interest and kept my interest.
Yeah, and and without doing a full review of this, because we'll probably do that later.
Oh yeah.
I'll say this: the present tense that they use in this novel, it's not as choppy as it was in the first Aftermath that we got last year, and so it's a smoother read on top of that. You're right, the added familiarity of the characters, and it's a much smoother sailing, and I enjoyed it a lot.
What kind of version did you get? Like, you ordered it from Amazon, right?
Yeah, I got the hardback edition.
Did it have anything neat in it, or?
No, I didn't get any of the bonuses, but that's okay. I mean, the poster of Mr. Bones that I saw the Barnes & Noble folks get is cool, but I honestly have no idea where I'd put that up. So,
I'm going to leave it in the book. I got the Barnes & Noble copy, and not necessarily because it was like, you've got this added extra thing inside of it, even though that is cool. It's just because, I don't know, it was more accessible to me, But right. But yeah, that is neat. I'll let you check it out next time I see you. Okay, well, Dave Filoni crashed the Star Wars Today show to share a clip from Rebels Season 3. In the clip, an older-looking Ezra leads a team that includes Zeb, Sabine, and Chopper through what appears to be an Imperial facility. Along for the adventure is Hondo and an Ugnaught. So I really, really, really get excited when I see these things. And I guess we're going to have some discussion on this a little later in the show, but I think that think the crew at Rebels does it right. They give us just enough at just the right time for us to get excited again. And I wouldn't be surprised if, much like last year, I don't know, because last year, when did they show the first episode of the second season? They showed it like in June or July.
Yeah, right about now, as a matter of fact. But that was because Celebration Anaheim was in April. So
yeah, boy, when do you know when the next season's going to start up?
All they've been saying is fall, but I think traditionally in the past that's been like late September or early October. So it's coming. It was cool. I like the segment. I mean, the most significant thing about that little clip that they gave us really was Ezra. I mean, he had the green lightsaber, he had the short haircut. He obviously was taller than he had been before.
Yeah.
And he was leading that team. I mean, he owned that team and for that mission. So it was cool. But I mean, really, we've got much more significant Rebels news coming up here in a bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the green lightsaber made me feel a little weird at first seeing it, but I don't know. It kind of works. I have a green lightsaber theory, by the way. So
all right, we'll get into that in a bit. Okay, well, new concept images of the Disneyland and Disney Hollywood Studios Star Wars expansions have been posted on the Disney Parks blog. So again, this is just concept art, and it looks, if you haven't seen it, I would recommend Googling the Disney Parks blog with the Star Wars land, taking a look. But it shows an X-Wing flying in from the lower left corner towards some sort of facility that's set on the edge of a lake or a river or something like that, and then it's got multiple rock spires coming up with very much Star Wars looking type of structures scattered throughout, and the Millennium Falcon's in the middle of that. It looks really, really cool.
That's pretty adventurous.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is concept art. I mean, it can't look exactly like that. All right, I'd be blown away if it looked exactly like that, because it has to fit in within the 14 acres that they've allotted for it, amongst the theme park that's got other elements, Disney princes and princesses and Goofy and Donald and Mickey and Minnie and all that.
So do you think they're going to have their like a subland kind of thing within the whole thing? Like let's face it, you could do an entire Star Wars theme park by itself. You could have Tatooine, you could have Endor, you know what I mean?
Sure. I think I don't know that there's going to be other sublands. I mean, this has been consistently described as a brand new world that we haven't seen in the movies, which actually I think is probably a good idea, because then you can't hold this land up to something you've seen in the movie and say, oh, they got that wrong and they got that wrong and this isn't right. And it allows them from freedom to create whatever, cantina that they're talking about making as their premier dining location they're in. Cool. So it's a good idea. This concept art is really cool. I'm a huge fan of Disney World, and I've been there quite a few times in my life. I'm looking at this, and I'm just not sure how a crowd gets through that. As many people that are going to be there.
Yeah, so, that's kind of weird.
So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see something that looked like this, but it won't be exactly that. But that screams Star Wars. That's just, that's something I would expect to see in a Star Wars movie or Clone Wars or Rebels or something.
What I thought would be pretty cool is if they had a resort that was Star Wars themed near it, and if the windows of the resort were basically, screens that made it look like you were really high up in Coruscant.
No, that would be really cool. I'd like that idea. Yeah. I'm also kind of, I get, caution. We need to get this Star Wars land built first.
Right.
But I would like to see at some point kind of what they've done over at Universal Studios with Harry Potter. And they have Hogwarts and Diagon Alley, and they're separated by the Hogwarts Express. And so you have these two different Harry Potter lands that you can visit. So, who knows? Maybe we'll get something in the future where we can hop on a space liner and go jump to hyperspace from one land to the other and see even more Star Wars experiences.
Oh, that would be so rad.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. All right.
Okay. Well, that is a look at this week's news, but that's just the tip of the iceberg for this episode.
Like we're being watched.
I am wondering, why are you here?
I'm looking for someone.
Looking? Found someone you have, I would say.
Well, August is almost upon us. You want to know where the Star Wars celebrities are next month? Well, we'll tell you where to find them in Skystalking. Taxis, what do we have going on?
Well, convention season's kind of winding down a little bit, but there's still plenty out there for the avid collector. So let's start it off with Tampa Bay Comic Con, August 5th through 7th. Okay, again, I've got a picture with both these guys I need signed. Texas Dude has a bunch of stuff signed by both of them, and, I'm really jealous. But Ian McDiarmid and Ray Park, the Emperor and Darth Maul. I mean, does it get any better than that?
Master and apprentice.
Man, that's almost worth going to that just for that. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Next up, Super Toy Con, Las Vegas, August 5th through 7th. David Prowse, Darth Vader, and Greg Grunberg, Snap Wexley. I think Joe and Chris are saying he was like super awesome, if I remember correctly. So go out there, catch that one before it gets too popular. Then Lehigh Valley Comic Con in Schnecksville, Pennsylvania, August 6th. The Mando Mercs and the Rebel Legion will be making an appearance, so go out there and show your support for them and their causes. Then we've got the Dallas Comic Show. And Dennis, I think this is something... Is this related to the Fan Expo people?
No, this is just a smaller comic expo that gets to take advantage of, a few local celebrities having to live in the area.
Okay, well, that's cool. Well, that's where I happened to be able to meet Peter Mayhew for the first time at one of those. So, at Dallas, Texas, August 6th through 7th, Peter Mayhew, Chewbacca. So if you got anything Chewie, get it signed. I got the Chewbacca graphic novel, the one where he had died. And I got that done a while back. Made me really happy. Boston Comic Con, August 12th through 14th. Mark Brooks, cover artist for Darth Vader and Kanan Comics. Ooh. John Cassidy, comic artist for Star Wars. Terry Dodson, comic artist for Princess Leia and Star Wars. And Howard Chaykin, Star Wars artist. So if you're into the comics like we are, go hunt them down. Kansas City Comic Con, August 12th through 14th. Well, who we got here? Billy D. Williams.
Whoa,
Lando. Then we got Jason Aaron, writer for Star Wars. Joe Caroni, Star Wars Imperial Handbook. Now that's a good book too. I've got that. Con. Man, that gives me tired head reading that too. August 13th through the 14th, Woodlawn, Virginia, R2 Builders Club and 501st Legion. Go out, show your support, and man, just enjoy the R2 Builders Club. That's something I wish I could had the wherewithal to join.
Right.
Next, Nickel City Con, August 13th to 14th at Buffalo, New York. Ray Park, Darth Maul. Phil Lamar, who's Kit Fisto from the Clone Wars. And Matthew Wood, Battle Droids and General Grievous, plus supervising sound editor for the prequels. So, those are some good ones. Neo Comic Con, Strongsville, Ohio, where everybody is good looking and can bench press at least 225. August 14th, the 501st Legion, Mando Mercs, and Rebel Legion. All three of them there. Atlanta Comic Con, August 14th, Dean Motter, Star Wars artist with Dark Horse and worked with Star Wars Tales. Terrificon in Uncasville, Connecticut. Am I saying that right?
As far as I know.
All right. August 19th through 21st, Rick Hoberg, artist on the old Star Wars comic strip and Marvel's classic Star Wars comics production. Artwork for Lucasfilm for Star Wars, too. I just thought, you know what? I just remembered those comic strips. Weren't they in like the Sunday morning comics and everything?
Yeah, long time, like 78 and 79.
Obviously non-canon, right?
I don't even remember what was in them.
Okay. Tom Palmer, inker that has worked for Star Wars Comics, and Kevin Smith. Man, he's on my list, I think.
Right.
Geek.con, Madison, Wisconsin, August 26th through 28th. My favorite Star Wars author, John Jackson Miller, writer for Kenobi and A New Dawn, of course. And Colorado Springs Comic Con, August 26th through 28th. Mark Dodson, who's the voice of Salacious Crumb, Ewoks, and other voices in The Force Awakens. That's pretty cool. NerdCon in Escondido, California, August 26th through 28th. San Diego Star Wars Society. Monsters and Robots, as finishing it all up in Somerset, New Jersey. Brian Muir. God, what's wrong with me? Sculpted Darth Vader's helmet, and Mike Quinn, Nien Nub and Return of the Jedi. And that is your Sky Stalking for August, Dennis.
Yeah, and just a general reminder to everybody out there, if you're interested in going to any of these cons and trying to meet these celebrities, do check closer to time to make sure there hasn't been any cancellations. And if you do get a photo or an autograph, please send us an email at scubepod@retrozap.com. We'd love to hear all about it, and we would feature that in our Silence Fools segment.
That's right.
All right, well, that will do it for Silence Fools.
You mean something else? That's okay. I can cut it off before then. That's all right. Do you want to do it one more time?
Okay. I'll just say that'll do it for... Yeah. Do you need to do the whole thing or just that part?
Just that part. That's fine.
Okay.
Let me put
and in... that will... Okay. Well, I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3. And that will do it for Sky Stalking. Only one thing that this episode's hypothetical could be about.
Sitho's latest additions to his collection?
No. This episode's hypothetical could only be about Celebration Europe. A ton of news emerged from London this past weekend. They've decided to focus on 3 of the panels, and then we're going to touch on a few other things as we go through the coverage. First up is the Rogue One panel. This was hosted by Gwendolyn Christie. It's had guests that included Kathleen Kennedy, Gareth Edwards, the director, John Knoll, who pitched the story to Kathleen in the first place, Carrie Hart from the story group, and then it also starred the cast, which includes Diego Luna, Riz Ahmed, Felicity Jones, Donnie Yen, Zhang Wen, Alan Tudyk, Mads Mikkelsen, Forrest Whitaker, and Ben Mendelsohn. Okay, so first off, we had the introduction of the guests, and so we started off with the Gareth Edwards, Kathleen Kennedy, Carrie Hart, and John Knoll. They came out and talked about the movie for a bit, and then we had the cast come out, which was capped off with the dramatic entrance of Ben Mendelsohn in his full director Krennic attire, flanked by the Death Troopers as he marched up onto the stage and walked off. Now that was classic.
That was fun.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't there, but I could feel the energy from the room at over there in London.
And I'm glad he didn't stop down and interview in that.
He just got up to the top of the stairs leading onto the stage, turned around, had a very stoic expression on his face, and then marched off. And he came back later to discuss the movie a bit. But
I'm glad he didn't even say anything. You know what I mean? I think that was really well done. Right.
Yeah. Well, then we got shortly after they were introduced, we had the what they've been calling the sizzle reel, which was offered up to the audience in place of a trailer, which everyone had been expecting. And this same sizzle reel was then aired during the Secrets of the Force Awakens, or whatever the special is. It's on the Blu-ray that they aired on ABC Friday night. So it's kind of a behind-the-scenes look at the making of the movie, and you kind of got some scenes mainly from the perspective of filming them. And if you want to hear our thoughts on that, I'd direct you to Brews and Blasters episode 79. Taxis and I were guests along with Skywalking Through Neverland and a few other Retro Zap.
Mike Harris and Mike McDonald.
Right. On that episode, breaking down the sizzle reel, and then a few other thoughts related to the Rogue One trailer. But a few other things that happened. We got Jen Erso. Felicity Jones was presented with the first Jen Erso action figure by Gwendolyn Christie.
Yeah, that was so neat. It looked pretty good from what I saw.
Right. It looked like the Black Series version of the character.
Yeah.
And she's clearly not a collector. She kept calling it a doll.
I know. She had a little doe in the headlights kind of look, and I forget who, I guess it was, what somebody on the cast, I want to say it was that said that this was, it was Richard, I think. He said something like, this was probably the biggest movie she's been in, and she hasn't been exposed to anything like this. before, you know, so
Right.
it's kind of like caught her off guard somewhat, I think, you know.
Yeah. And then, you know, we got an opportunity to see some of the, you know, they talked to each one of the cast members pretty much one at a time.
Yeah.
Some of them talked more than others. We had an opportunity to hear quite a bit from Alan Tudyk, and then they showed some footage of his character, which is the droid K2 in the background. Now, we didn't get to hear him really do K2's voice, but we did get to get his perspective on that character.
Yeah, I kind of jotted down some thoughts that struck me while each of them was speaking. And one of the things I liked about Felicity Jones, what she had to say about it is, unlike Luke and unlike Rey or anybody else, Jen is not a character who is asking who she is or anything like that. She fully understands who she is and what she's about. You know?
Right, which is great. We don't need any more characters necessarily trying to figure out what their heritage is and learning and trying to figure out what their destiny is. And you know, at the end of that sizzle reel, I do like the fact that, you know, she turns to the camera and presumably the crew that's on whatever ship she's on and says, "May the force be with us all." You know, with a little bit of attitude, which is, I think, is great, because it was a good character moment there.
One of the things I thought about that Diego revealed that was kind of interesting is that he reprogrammed K2. He was an Imperial droid, you know, and that he's kind of his friend, which, you know, I guess it makes sense if you're in espionage business. You know, maybe you can only count on a droid, which kind of reminds me, what's that character duo on the EU novels? Do you remember who I'm talking about? They were in all the mall, kind of like Maul trying to hunt him down and kill him.
There's I-5, I think is the droid's name, but I can't remember what the other character's name is. But he spoiler warning, he doesn't survive.
No, he doesn't. Nobody really does when it comes to Maul. But, you know, I hope it's sort of like that kind of relationship that was established there. And
he did make a mention that, you know, K2 is Captain Cassian's closest friend in the rebellion at the time. And then when Tudyk was talking about K2, he goes on to mention that he's honest to the point of being unsettling, kind of like an old person.
Yeah,
that just
I wrote
says
that
whatever's
down
on
too.
their mind.
Yeah, that was hilarious, you know?
Right.
That's
and
so
then he
true.
had the quite not safe for the podcast description of his conversation with Anthony Daniels about him being the new droid. And when Anthony asked him, "Are you in costume or CGI?" He said CGI. And so I would encourage you to go find a video of the live stream to see what Anthony Daniels' response was to that.
It was very verbose, yet very humorous. So, and then we had the skinny dip story with him. You know, apparently he felt comfortable enough to go diving off and swimming with whale sharks, without any clothes on, apparently. But yeah.
There's a lot of inside jokes that Gwendolyn kept bringing up with them, and some were clearer than others. But they seemed like a fairly close cast. Riz Ahmed made the one joke about working with, you know, a very talented cast and Alan Tudyk, which was funny. But you know, we can talk about a few other aspects beyond the crew here.
Well, remember what Riz was able to talk about is that Bodhi. Who does he work for currently? And I hope this, I mean, they said it out in the open. So, okay, if you absolutely don't want to know anything, you don't want to watch the panels at all from Star Wars Celebration, maybe this is a spoiler, but I don't think so. You know, what do you think, Dennis?
Just go ahead and spit it out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he currently works for the Empire. So, you know, it kind of makes sense. Yeah, you're looking for an insider to try to use to infiltrate, you know? If you've got somebody with credentials, you know, who's a turncoat, you know, then you can use those to your benefit, you know? So I think that's a really good angle for the movie, you know, because it kind of makes sense. You know, they would want to have somebody on the inside to try to steal the plans, right?
Right. Yeah. He looked right at Kathleen Kennedy when he said, when you belong to an organization, you don't necessarily agree with all their decisions that they make. But so
yeah, that was really funny.
Yeah. And then, you know, they spent a little time talking to Donnie Yen and Zhang when as well about their characters. Not that I want to give them the short end of the straw, but there was other areas of that panel that we need to discuss. I was a little surprised that Forrest Whitaker got as little attention as he did during the panel. He did make note that his character Saw Gerrera emerged from the Clone Wars and was a character that was created by George Lucas. So, George's fingerprints are in fact on this movie to some extent.
And he was conspicuously missing from the sizzle reel as well.
That is true. We didn't see him at all, and we did see, he was missing from the sizzle reel, and then K2 wasn't actually in the sizzle reel either. We saw him in the some other footage while Tudyk was talking, but otherwise we didn't get to see him during that.
Yeah.
One of the things that came up was that Darth Vader is in this movie, and we had an opportunity to hear Gareth Edwards talk about being in the recording studio with James Earl Jones, and geeking out with their sound crew while Mr. Jones was recording his dialogue, and that was pretty cool.
He's in there. He said that that really they all got chills when he said "power," and
right,
yeah. And he said, "What do you do?" He's telling me, "Oh, that was good, Mr. Jones. Could you start over again?" And
right. Well, and then speaking of George Lucas, he also visited the set, and Gareth Edwards revealed that he found out on a Friday that George Lucas was going to be coming the following week, and so he spent the entire weekend fretting about showing what he was doing on this movie to the maker, to the creator of Star Wars himself, and how he sweated it out all weekend. But that when George got there, that he was really, he had some good-natured ribbing and teased him a bit, but in the end they got along fairly well.
Yeah, it that must have been kind of awe-inspiring and nerve-wracking at the same time. And I'm just gonna say, I wonder if maybe some of what George, I don't know, and this is mere speculation, but maybe some of George's pointers and tips kind of fed into the reshoots.
I don't think so. Look, they've come out and they've said already that only two people really at Disney or Lucasfilm have seen this movie. Yeah. And one was Bob Iger. And so,
and he was summarily shot afterwards, right?
Right. So, I'm sure if George Lucas shows up on the set of your movie and gives you some pointers, you're going to take them into consideration. But I don't know that you're going to create an entire set of reshoots around those. I'm willing to believe what Anthony Bresnikan from Entertainment Weekly has reported, which is, they had a few character moments that they needed to develop, or, they had some cockpit chatter that they needed to get. But these were smaller moments that kind of filled in some of the spaces of this movie to make it a tighter story. I don't think this was an in-depth reshoot. That based on anyone's notes that they took from making this movie. I could certainly say see if Bob Iger said it just wasn't as funny as I thought it should have been. Okay, fine. So you had a couple jokes, but I can't imagine that they were going to do anything drastic off of what George Lucas was suggesting.
Or if Gareth Edwards walked in and said, Nope. We got to start all over. After what George said. Well, what did George say? Faster, more intense.
Right.
That's it.
Well, two more things, and I think we need to move on to our next panel. But
okay,
we did. We actually, this 2 points about the same thing. But we did get the location, the names of a couple new planets. Scarif was the name of the Paradise planet that we've seen in the trailer and was featured during the sizzle reel. And then we also get Jeddah, which is the dustier, dirty world where we see the stormtroopers and the tank rolling down the street. And I think that's the planet where we see Diego Luna's, not Diego Luna's character, Donnie Yen's character beating up stormtroopers. And, I think we've seen Jen Erso doing the same thing there. So,
and I think Riz Ahmed is there too.
Right.
I think that's where he said he was from. or something.
But at any rate, we've got a couple new planet names.
We sure do.
Yeah, and so
everybody go out there and buy the visual guide as soon as it comes out.
So the next panel we've got is the Untold Tales of Ahsoka Tano, which was featured Dave Filoni, Ashley Eckstein, and Pablo Hidalgo. And when I first heard about this panel, I thought we were going to be getting kind of a publisher's take on, because we'd heard that there was going to be a new Ahsoka novel released later this fall. It turned out to be a whole lot more than that. They kind of talked about episodes of the Clone Wars and that were never produced that dealt with more details of Ahsoka's life. And they really broke it down to a bunch of sections. The first one was Ahsoka's early years, and this featured the tale of how Plo Koon came to fetch Ahsoka and take her to the Jedi Order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I found that pretty interesting. I thought this was neat. It's almost like, could we still see this as backstory? You know, I don't think they ruled it out per se, but yeah, this was neat. Where Ahsoka, it really shows that whereas the Jedi oftentimes are cast in the light of stealing children, you know, this was more like it was an honor for her, I guess, city, village, tribe, family.
Right.
That they would have someone who was chosen to be part of the Jedi Order.
Yeah, I really think that I think this is supposed to be the tale. You know, it's never set well with me that the Jedi have this reputation as children stealers. I think there's even that episode of the Clone Wars where Cad Bane was trying to steal Force-sensitive children, and even posing as a Jedi, he was trying to convince the parents to hand over the children. Right. But at any rate, that's an aside. But you know, the story is that the village realized that Ahsoka was Force sensitive, and so they're trying to contact the Jedi so that they could take Ahsoka and train her, and it was going to be an honor. But then there was a bounty hunter that realized that this would be of some value, that this child could be ransomed off or and held hostage, and it could bring value to him. So they had to, Plo Koon had to compete with this bounty hunter, and there was this juxtaposition of him looking scary with his apparatus on his face and the clawed talons of his hands, compared to the ne'er-do-well bounty hunter who looked much more angelic by comparison. Yeah. So it was fascinating listening to Dave tell that story with Pablo.
There's some cute little pictures of little Ahsoka too, with her big old eyes.
Right. And then so we moved on to Ahsoka's life after she left the Jedi Order. And so basically she had descended into the underworld on Coruscant, and she was having some adventures there, and she was teaming up with a character named Nix Okami, which was turned out to be something of a romantic interest for her.
Uh-huh. Well, and if I could just rewind just a little bit, because weren't there some shots that Filoni showed about right after she left the Order, how she was sitting against a speeder bike? And he said that they wanted to show her sitting in a park about 3 miles away and staring at the Jedi Temple, just kind of going internally, what have I done? Just kind of walked away from that. But he said that's not necessarily the important thing. Okay. He said something, and he said it in a way that made me think, oh, here's a parallel. He said that when Ahsoka descended the steps, leaving the temple, entering this next phase in her life or something, I'm paraphrasing, but he did say descending the steps, leaving the temple. Okay. And maybe it was just a common term. You just said it, but that's exactly what we saw at the end of Rebels Season 2, descending steps. Right?
Right.
And it makes me wonder if there's not some sort of story parallel or for her character between those two. I don't know. It's just me speculating, but that when he said that, my ears kind of perked up. Said, because he kind of said it in a weird way, it was a matter of fact, and then he kind of like sounded like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have exactly used those words. You know, the way he was kind of trailing off. I don't know. So in the way he said it, you know. So go back and listen to that and tell me what you think.
Right. So they showed pictures of her meditating and with a speeder bike that they didn't use during Clone Wars, and then would be recycled as Kanan's speeder in Rebels later.
That was neat. But back to Nyx, yeah.
Yeah, and then they went back to, and they showed this Nyx Okami character who was, they fully designed him, and she was going to have some adventures with him, and it was going to be, teased as a romantic interest, and as Ashley Eckstein put it, for one hot minute, Ahsoka had a boyfriend, and so again, a different story, another romantic entanglement for a Jedi or an ex-Jedi. So something that never came to be. But from there, the next segment was her return to the Jedi, and which was misleading because she never actually rejoined the Jedi, but she did work with them again. And the story that Dave Filoni revealed was that as they descended into Coruscant in this timeline, there's an ancient Sith temple on the surface. And so Ahsoka helps the Jedi fight a danger that even threatens Yoda. And they didn't go into exactly what that threat was, but again, it had something to do with ancient Sith. But then there was a scene that they teased with a sketch that I found absolutely fascinating, where Ahsoka is defending a holocron chamber.
Oh yeah.
And she's trying to use her lightsaber to destroy the lock, and there's force lightning that is coming through the chamber. Not pictured in the sketch, but the blank was filled in by Dave, is that Darth Sidious is on the other side projecting this lightning. So, which is really fascinating because, that would have been the only time that we saw Sidious fighting the Jedi in the Clone Wars. Now, he fought against Maul and Savage Opress during the Clone Wars, but he never went up against the Jedi.
Yeah, that would be interesting. And I thought it was interesting, like, okay, first off, what's he doing down there? He already knows it exists. Why is she trying to seal off a holocron chamber, and is she on the wrong side? Or is she trying to seal him into the chamber?
Well, they were really unclear because it sounded to me, and I may have misunderstood, but it seemed like she, maybe Sidious was taking advantage of them being away to attack the Jedi Temple and get to their holocron chamber. But but I'm not certain about that. But they didn't dwell on that topic, so that's just going to fuel our imagination for forever.
It's kind of a cool concept, using the Force lightning down the lightsaber path.
Exactly. Right. Well, and then this next segment has been referenced in Rebels, but the Siege of Mandalore came up next, and the story there is that Maul finds his way back to Mandalore, and he's still pulling the strings there. He's still in charge of the planet, which is interesting in itself for no other reason that the last time we see Maul in the Clone Wars is he's getting beaten up by Darth Sidious, which is what we were just referencing. Yeah. And so he somehow escaped that. And then, we have the Son of Dathomir comic series that occurs some point after this. But so anyway, Ahsoka's been working with Bo-Katan on Mandalore, which was the brother of the who was it, Pre Vizsla on Mandalore for a while, and the Death Watch. And then she lets the Jedi know that they have a chance to get Maul, and so Obi-Wan and Anakin show up to help out. And then as they're getting ready to put their plan into motion to take Maul down, they get summoned by Yoda back to Coruscant because essentially we're seeing the beginning of Revenge of the Sith. However, Obi-Wan doesn't leave Ahsoka on her own. She leaves the 501st he leaves the 501st with her, and they've got apparently gear that's got orange helmets that are Ahsoka's colors, and so that's the reference that Rex makes in Rebels, that the last time he saw Ahsoka was during the Siege of Mandalore, and so presumably they get to take Maul down or flush him out of Mandalore at that point.
So that's pretty much canon then. I mean, maybe not the details exactly, but the fact that she was there and there was a siege. So Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So at any rate, we do get the backstory now of that story, of that reference that Rex makes during Rebels.
Also, that's kind of cool that, leaving the 501st there, because that's sort of like, hey, Anakin, what happened to you?
Well, yeah, no, we don't have to worry about Rex being involved in the attack on the Jedi Temple during Revenge of the Sith. And, because the next time we see him after Clone Wars is, I don't even remember what the name of the planet was with the giant worms in Rebels, but, he's retired there. He's removed his chip, and, I always kind of wondered if he had participated in killing any Jedi. It just didn't seem like a very Rex thing to do. Well, now we know why he did not. So he wasn't around for that.
Yeah.
So before they get into the next big section, they show some other sketches, and a story idea that never got past the idea part was that post Order 66. Although Ahsoka wasn't a Jedi, she was still on the run from the clones.
Yeah.
And Dave Filoni has a affinity for wolves. He always wears that T-shirt with the wolf head on it.
Yeah.
And so he's got this sketch of Ahsoka riding this wolf with extremely long legs. And the idea he had was that she was going to be pursued by some clones into a forest. And when they catch up to her, she's meditating on some rock, and they say, lower your weapon, and you're coming with us. And she opens her eyes and says something to the effect of, "You'll have to talk to my friends about that." And well, these giant wolves attacked the clones, and so it was an image it was a scene he came up with, but never had an opportunity to incorporate into anything.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that would make sense. Because you do get the feeling like she in Rebels, she has been hiding and she's used to hiding.
Right.
Even Kanan didn't know she was around.
Right. Well, and then they use that to transition into the news of the Ahsoka Tano novel that's coming out this fall. It's being written by E.K. Johnston, and really all we know about it is that it's a post-Clone Wars novel, and Miss Johnston was given basically everything that Dave and Pablo just shared. So I'm beginning to wonder if this is going to be more of a, instead of one long continuous story, possibly we're going to be getting chapters that are devoted to different areas in time that deal with Ahsoka's story after she left the Jedi Temple. So that could be cool. I'm looking forward to that one this fall.
Do you think any of these will be integrated into it? Or do you think this might have been a teaser to get us I'm interested, of course, in the book. Right. You are, but...
Yeah, they made a specific reference to giving her all this backstory. So while it may be some other tale, I have a feeling we're going to get a lot of references to these things. That we'll get some description of what happened with the Siege of Mandalore, and we're going to find out about Nick Sokami and some of these other stories that they made. I don't know about the giant wolf, but we'll probably be getting a lot of this other stuff.
Right.
Well, and then we get to the Rebels timeline, which includes her life as Fulcrum and helping establish the rebellion, and her work with Kanan and Ezra, and concludes with the infamous duel with Darth Vader on Malachor. And so a couple of things that they noted was that she has those clear lightsabers, and Dave Filoni said something about lightsabers that was absolutely fascinating, that kyber crystals unto themselves are clear. That they don't have a color, and it's really the lightsaber that makes the color of them. And when the Jedi as Padawans try to go to Ilum to find their crystals, they look just like ice, which is why they're so hard to find. So it's not necessarily that there's anything different. Well, and this is a bit of extrapolation between a Sith kyber crystal and a Jedi's kyber crystal. They are in fact clear. I don't know. It's an interesting thing to say. Just happened to rewatch the episode of Rebels where Ezra gets his kyber crystal, and it was blue. So,
yeah. Well, maybe that's from a first-person perspective. Like, we're seeing the color that they're seeing.
Right. And yeah, and then the other thing that happened was they talked quite a bit about the duel with Anakin. And did you see the pictures of the whiteboard where he had kind of drawn out the story, or views of how that duel is going to look?
No, I didn't. I didn't get that far into it on the replay.
Well, it was this epic illustration on a whiteboard. I mean, it was quite impressive of Darth Vader and Ahsoka dueling, and apparently had stayed up there for months, and everyone was afraid to erase it. And then finally, Ryan Johnson, the director for Episode 8, needed to use that room for a meeting, and I guess they sent Dave a text saying, can we erase this whiteboard? He's like, yeah, go ahead. And then he got another text, are you really sure we can erase this whiteboard? So it was a very impressive illustration.
So they obviously took pictures in order to save it for posterity.
Yeah, and I took some screen prints of those pictures, and I'll try and put them up on Twitter sometime in the next couple of days.
Yeah, I'd like to see them.
Right. And then, so now the question moves to, to what's the fate of Ahsoka. And Dave Filoni mentioned that, he hadn't really planned on doing anything with Ahsoka after this, but the fans' reactions to Ahsoka are such that, he is not saying how or in what form, but that, he's not certain that we've seen the last of her. Is that, so we'll probably be seeing her again some point. And, then he toyed with the audience saying, I could take the easy way out and just use her in a flashback or something. You never know. But he did tease that we'll be seeing her again in some fashion in the future.
Yeah, I just don't know how. I mean, Vader would not leave someone alive. Well,
I agree with you. I mean, we could spend an entire hour talking about the end of season 2 of Rebels. I'm the optimist. I think she survived, but Vader limped out of there. So, maybe he just didn't figure it was in his best interest to deal with her at the moment. She was stranded on Malachor, so we'll see.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
So those tops images, I burned through. I only got to the 6th one because I was really intrigued by them, because I tried to find them online. I couldn't. Did you see the rest of them, or?
No, I haven't looked for them. I'm taking a break from the Card Trader app, right. I didn't.
I'll send you how far I got. But yeah, I was trying to piece it together a little bit, And
they're intriguing. They're very intriguing. But he says there's clues in those cards. So if you play the Card Trader app, I don't know if they're still available or not, but go out and try and get them, see what you can find out.
You put them all together, it makes a big coffin.
Right. Right. Well, and then there's going to be a new Ahsoka Funko Pop character, which is going to be a Hot Topic exclusive coming out this fall. Then they showed a low-res animation starring Nix Okami, and he's getting beaten up by some thugs, and then Ahsoka lays down the law on these guys. So that was kind of cool.
By the way, his last name sounds like an Irish Marxist.
Right.
Okami.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's Ahsoka. The next featured panel of the weekend was the Rebels panel, and that was hosted by Warwick Davis, and it featured Dave Filoni again, Tia Sakar, who voices Sabine, and
wonderful Tia Sakar, I might add.
Right, and Sam Witwer, who voices Maul and the Emperor. Few key areas to discuss with that panel. Pretty much all of the characters have new looks.
I like that.
Right, starting with Kanan. He's apparently still blind. He's wearing less armor, and he's got a mask over his eyes.
Yeah, his little half helm looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, they said something about the eyes being a direction or something.
Right, yeah. I thought it looked a bit like Daredevil, but it's kind of the J guys that Rex has on his helmet, and the point that Dave was making was that one of the reasons those are there from an artistic standpoint or an aesthetic point is that it kind of gives the audience an idea of where he's looking or where his attention is drawn to, and he's not looking anywhere because he can't see. But that's the reason why they're there.
Okay. It looks pretty cool. I mean, you could tell it was reminiscent of the helmet he found in the last episode of last season. So, and I like the beard.
Yes, I did forget to mention the beard. He does have a beard, and he's looking a lot older there, and looks much more like a mentor that way.
Yeah, that's cool.
Right. And then they talked about Ezra a bit. We've pretty much covered all those changes there with the new haircut, the new lightsaber.
I have to say something. It's hard to come across crystals, right?
Right.
And that's why, in theory, you shouldn't see lightsabers all over the place in this galaxy, right? At this point in time. What if Ezra's crystal was the one that made it to Luke?
Possible.
Just throwing that out there. Just a connection.
That's interesting speculation. I mean, I guess the other thought that I had with that is, did the crystal from his last lightsaber actually get destroyed? And if what Dave has said about the Kyber crystals not actually having a color unto themselves, I mean, it could have been recycled for all we know.
Yeah, but, that's true. That's true.
Right.
Well, and I guess the other thing I was thinking about with this whole thing is that I really don't think we're going to see, anything regarding the Rebels in Rogue One.
Oh, I agree completely.
Because you can't do that without revealing major spoilers, unless that guy who's giving Jen her orders is Agent Callus.
Interesting speculation, but they didn't. Yeah, I don't know. I like Rebels, and I'm excited for Rogue One. I think, unpopular opinion here, but I think people are working very hard to draw connections or suggesting connections to Lucasfilm and these guys, Gareth Edwards and Dave Filoni, about how they should link these all up. I mean, it's a natural thing to do because they occur within the same time frame. And Rogue One's about the Rebels getting the Death Star, and Rebels is about how the Rebel Alliance came to be and leading up to these events. And we've been seeing teases of the Death Star over the past 2 seasons. So I can understand why people are making the connection. Dave Filoni even said that a lot of the aesthetic changes coming up in episode 3 are their attempt to make Rebels look more like what has been the costume choices and the color palette for Rogue One.
Oh, cool. Yeah. That's cool.
I mean, he said that right during this panel. But I mean, I don't know. I think I would caution everyone not to get their hopes up to see a lot of Rebels connections in Rogue One.
Well, there was one more connection I was possibly thinking of. Everybody's wondering why Jin's father is so important. And I started wondering if what his use is to the Emperor is because of the loss of so many Kyber crystals that we saw in Rebels Season 1. Do you remember that? That big hoist? That maybe he has to find an alternative method for getting the same power out of fewer crystals.
Yeah,
something like that. I'm just saying. Throwing this. This is just idle speculation as I'm driving down the road, just kind of thinking through everything. Like, if they were going to make connections, how would they make cool little side story connections without actually saying, "Oh, hey, what's going on?" Sabine.
Right. Well, I think that's a possibility. I mean, when the Entertainment Weekly stories were coming out recently, and Mikkelsen's character was being described as Urso's father, and that he possessed doomsday knowledge that both the Rebellion and the Empire were interested in. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why they're trying to recruit Jin is to find him, because he's of interest to so many people. And, if she's got, some knowledge about how to do that, she would be valuable to them, besides the fact that they can hold it over her head that she's got crimes to atone for.
Right. Okay, that's the end of my speculation. I just you made me think about that when discussion of Ezra. So
yeah, well then let's see. Going through a few more of the characters, Sabine's got a new look as well, a new haircut that Tia Sakar herself had a lot of input. It features purple color with yellow highlights, kind of parted more to the side than she usually does. Yeah. She gets a collection of new gadgets, which will be revealed to be a jetpack. And, we'll save the last one here for just a bit. They showed us Hera, who looks, I think, the most similar to what she did in prior seasons. Well, that's not true. Zeb looks awfully similar too, except for her uniform looks a bit more like what the Rebels are wearing, and less like what a merchant would be wearing.
Yeah.
And then Zeb is largely the same costume, missing maybe the shoulder armor.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but so good changes. They're evolving and at a quicker rate than the characters evolved in Clone Wars. Well, then they showed us the season 3. They showed us a season 3 clip, which featured Ezra, Sabine, and Chopper fighting off Mandalorians, which is a new development for this season. And the jetpacks came into play there. It's a chase scene. One Mandalorian is attempting to get Sabine to pledge something or say something, and she uses that moment to sucker punch him and then take off on her jetpack, and Ezra kind of hitches a ride, and the green lightsaber features prominently throughout that escape.
That's cool.
Yeah. Well, so moving on, we spend some time hearing from Sam Witwer talk about Darth Maul.
Okay.
And he's being described as, at this point in his life, kind of coming to grips with what he has become, still on the evil side of things, and he's looking for a purpose. And interesting, he still looks at Ezra as being his apprentice.
Yeah. And that's what, okay. Yeah, what is his end game? What is his purpose? Yeah.
Well, they didn't really tell us that, and I don't think they planned on it. But what they mentioned is that Maul looks at Ezra as someone who might be capable of doing all the things that he wanted to do. So I don't know exactly what that means, but it may mean that Ezra is his opportunity to get revenge against the Emperor. Maybe.
I mean,
Ezra,
he said he wasn't necessarily Sith, right? I mean.
No, not anymore.
Okay.
But he's still from that lineage,
right? Right.
Craving power. So yeah. Then there's a season 3 clip featuring Maul, and Darth Maul is holding Zeb, Hera, and Sabine hostage, and Ezra and Kanan kind of show up to deal with him on that, and. I guess we'll go ahead and, spoiler here for this clip because it comes from an episode. But after giving Kanan and Ezra some assurances that he doesn't really mean them any harm, he then tries to flush Kanan out an airlock. So it's Ezra goes to
sorry.
Yeah. So Ezra goes to, I can't remember exactly what Ezra was heading off to do, but Kanan is expressing his distrust, and Maul mentions that he's like, he didn't really intend to blind Kanan, which Kanan doesn't buy, and then he tries to flush him out the airlock. So
right
there you go.
Well, Kanan holds grudges. We know that.
Right. And then the what everyone was anxious to see finally happened, and that was the season 3 trailer.
Yeah.
We got to see an awful lot there, but for the sake of time, I think we're going to probably need to hit a few primary points.
Sure.
First, we get a preview of some of the new characters that are going to be appearing next season. The first one is Governor Price, who we've heard quite a bit about in the past 2 seasons, but we have not had the opportunity to see. Mm-hmm. She's an Imperial. She's wearing an Imperial uniform. She's got, jaw-length cropped black hair. And so we see her. We see a very famous rebel in Wedge Antilles.
Yeah, that was cool. That was really cool.
Right. And not only that, he is a defecting Imperial cadet, which was an interesting development.
Good backstory,
right.
And kind of shows that there might be some. So, okay, you remember the X-Wing, the Rogue group, the Dark Horse comic line?
Right, in the novels.
Yeah, in the novels. I loved how there was a secret society in the Imperial Academy who planned on, we're out of here, right. Need the first chance that we get, and right. I'm kind of hoping that we get that same feeling with this.
Right. Yeah. Well, it was cool to see. I had no idea he was coming. They've been teasing a major new addition to Rebels next season, and it's not Wedge, but he's a new character, which leads us to the big reveal from this trailer. And Governor Price is talking to Grand Moff Tarkin, who's back next season, and mentioning that she needs someone who can help her anticipate what it is the rebels are going to do, because the rebels are thwarting her.
Right.
And so we start getting flashes of an Imperial character with his back to the camera, and then we get other clips, and then they keep zooming in on this character, and it's revealed to be none other than Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Yeah, that was so great. He's such a great character, and beside the fact that it, we saw in the comic, I believe, at Chiss, a little while ago.
I was actually a Pantoran, but yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. Well, you seen one, you seen them all, right?
Right.
This now establishes the Chiss in the official canon. It's very interesting, and I'm so glad that they kept the character of how he dissects the cultures that he defeats.
Yeah, I've got mixed feelings about this. I like Thrawn in the Thrawn trilogy. I really did. I like that trilogy. I was not looking forward to him showing up in Rebels. Again, another unpopular opinion. I don't know. It's, when Thrawn showed up in the Legends material, it was after Return of the Jedi, and he was the de facto head of the Empire at that point, and he was the antagonist for Luke, Han, and Leia, and the New Republic at that point.
And what was he out doing? Did it have something to do with the Yvonne Bass or whatever their name was?
No, that's a different. Well, that's only a complicated thing.
Yeah, what was the explanation for why he wasn't around?
He'd been in the unknown regions, dealing with things there, and we could go into what he's doing there for a really long time. But if you want to know that story, pick up the novel Outbound Flight, and then which takes place during the prequel area, and then you want to follow that up with Spectre of the Past and Vision of the Future, the duology that takes place largely after Return of the Jedi. But at any rate, so he was originally a character that was going to be dealing with those characters, and now he's being brought in, and not to diminish the crew of the Ghost, but he's being brought in to deal with the small rebel faction. So anyway, I kind of felt that might be diminishing him in his role a little bit. But be that as may, he's now in Rebels. He looks really impressive. And it's the initial presentation is really very exciting.
Yeah, it's cool. And he introduces, let's face it, this introduces the character to a whole new generation of Star Wars fans.
Yeah. And, there's, and they've been taking advantage of that to, suggest that everyone go out and get the Thrawn trilogy. It starts with Heir to the Empire and some of those other books, so you can get an idea of who he is. But speaking of
Thrawn Black Series 6-inch?
I don't know about that.
Man, that would be awesome.
Right. But we do have a new Thrawn product coming out, and that is a novel by Timothy Zahn himself, coming out in April next year, which I guess will give us some idea of what Thrawn's story is in this new expanded universe.
Oh my gosh, that has my Star Wars Wookiee pants just going all sorts of crazy when I saw that. I was like, oh, just the front cover alone looks so great. And it's kind of reminiscent of the Ahsoka cover too.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, Ahsoka, we get more of a full-length character with her two new white-bladed lightsabers. Thrawn is mainly a profile of most of his face, on there. But I don't even know if that's the final cover. I'm probably not. Hey, look, Timothy Zahn writes a great novel, so I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, and reintroducing Timothy Zahn now to the official canon storylines. So,
it's been a while since he's written anything.
That made me happy.
Yeah. Well, let's get through a few more notes on this panel, and then we'll go to some other thoughts from Celebration. But the Darksaber returns to Star Wars. This was the black lightsaber that Pre Vizsla had, the leader of the Death Watch Mandalorians, had debuted back in the Clone Wars. It was last seen in possession of Darth Maul. But in the trailer, we get to see it in the hands of Sabine, of all people. They teased us that there's a story as to how she gets it, but we don't know for certain. Mm-hmm. One of the questions that was asked after the presentation was over is if we're going to see any other characters emerge from the Legends, and the specific question was about Mara Jade, which Dave Filoni deflected, said, hey, look, we got your back, we got you, Thrawn, but I don't think you're going to see Mara Jade. So Sorry, Mara Jade fans, but
and the price of my action figure just went way up with that.
Yeah, right. But you know, Cad Bane was asked about, and he kind of deflected there, but he thinks that Cad's probably hanging out somewhere in this tough and, you know, may not be gone. And he really liked the idea of Maz Kanata maybe showing up in Rebels one day. So.
Yeah, I don't really see Cad Bane making a big reappearance. I mean, to me, he was a big Clone Wars foil, and I mean, we got Hondo. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, that you stole the words right out of my mouth. I was gonna say, you know, we kind of, I think we're probably reaching critical mass on the Clone Wars characters that can show up.
Yeah. Let's make some new ones. Let's, you know, integrate to the original trilogy. You know, let's do that. Let's do the bridging. You know. But Cad Bane would be an interesting one to see in Rogue One.
Going there again. Okay. Well, so I think that's going to do it for us for the Rebels panel.
I do have one more thing to say. Okay, the introduction of Gray Force.
Well, I don't think it's really Gray Force. They call it the middle way of the Force. And you're talking about the Bendu character, right?
Yeah, I call it the middle way of the Force. I mean, come on, you're either hot or you're either cold. You know, you want to be Force Porge, be Gray. You know? Yeah,
I don't know. I'm interested to see what the explanation there is. To be more specific, for anyone who's not aware of what we're talking about, there's a new character called the Bendu, and it's voiced by Tom Baker, who is one of the doctors on Doctor Who.
Oh, yeah.
And this is, I guess, Kanan is going to run into this character and get some advice of some sort. And it's a huge creature. So I don't even know how to describe it. So
is it sort of like the Ashla and Bogan, and this is the Bendu, you know? Is it sort of like a Force deity?
Well, we don't have enough details to say one way or the other, so we'll just have to catch that episode and find out.
Most definitely.
But the only thing that's really said is that it represents the middle way of the Force. That's what Dave kept saying. But, you know, it's some sort of a huge creature. It has an important part next season, and so yeah, we'll see that.
Is it sort of like, you know, what's funny? It kind of reminds me of the other Filoni series, Avatar. And,
yeah, I didn't watch that.
Oh, it's really good. You ought to. But there was this huge sea turtle with like a whole island on its back. And I'll be interested to compare and contrast these two concepts between the two shows, you know, because it acted sort of in a way that showed the main character a new thought, you know, rather than I have to do this or I have to do that. And it kind of said, no, well, have you thought of this? And kind of taught him a new way to look at things, you know? It's kind of interesting that we get another huge character that, from what I remember looking at briefly, it kind of looked a little turtle-like.
I could be. Again, I'm not familiar with Avatar, so I don't.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, I don't even know how to make the comparison. But you know, we didn't see much of Bendu. We heard him say his name, but so you know, we'll see. I mean, I'm thinking you're onto something with, yes, there's a new way of looking at things, and one of the themes of the trailer was Ezra wanting to explore the Sith holocron as a way of beating the Empire. And so I think that's going to be one of these, you know, it's been a theme and it's going to be an ongoing theme in Rebels, and that Ezra is trying to get a larger view of the Force, and, you know, he's doing whatever it takes to protect his friends.
Yeah.
So I think that's, you know, my speculation is that's where the Bendu is going to come in. It's going to be teaching Kanan a larger way of maybe coping with Ezra and what Ezra's up to.
And I'd like to note that my Sith robes are charcoal, not necessarily gray. So anybody out there thinking, well, you wear gray, yet you're dissing on gray, you know, Force users. Well, no, I wear charcoal. Okay. It's a lighter form of black.
All right. Well, just some other thoughts from Celebration. I had an opportunity to see the future filmmakers panel. Not a whole lot was revealed there, other than they did confirm that Alden Ehrenreich is the new Han Solo.
Okay. All right.
Episode 8 is picking up where episode 7 left off, so there's no time jump as there's been in other movies. And John Boyega crashed the Celebration at that point. and then they had the closing ceremonies after that. Any other highlights from Celebration you can think of?
No, not that I can really think of. I mean, it looked like it was really nice. Like I said, on Brews and Blasters, that was kind of open and laid out a little bit better, that the venue afforded it. I mean, like all the costumes from Rogue One were easy to access, you know?
Right.
And, yeah, I mean, that's, you know, what it did do is it made me super excited for Star Wars or Celebration Orlando.
Yeah. Bring on Orlando.
Right.
Come on, April 2017. Looking forward to it. Well, that will then do it for this week's Hypothetical. Say it, Taxes.
Silence, fools!
That's right. Let's get to your listener feedbacks. Taxes, if you would do the honors.
Thank you, Dennis. From iTunes, we have the following review by Eric Loves Star Wars. These guys are great. There are a lot of great Star Wars podcasts out there, and this one comfortably joins the ranks of my favorites. Great sense of humor and lightheartedness. Plus, there was a full episode about Galactic Empire. It's like Wayne's World for Star Wars. That is awesome. I really thank you so much, Eric. Kinder words. Well, you know, that goes up to the top of my list, you know. And I think he gets it. I think he gets what we're trying to do here, Dennis.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a very kind review. I'm glad that we are on his regular podcast reel. So that's really cool. Glad to hear that.
Keep sending us, you know, send us some email, Eric. Send us some questions. Send me anything. What kind of weird, tight, see-through shirt I like to wear when I go out clubbing, for example.
You know what? No. Anything else, I beg of you. All right. For fun, a week or two ago, I tried out a Twitter poll, and my question was, if you could only see one, which movie would you pick? And the choices were Rogue One, Episode 8, or the upcoming Han Solo movie. So let me put that question to you, Taxes. So which one of those would you pick?
I think I picked Rogue One.
Really?
Yeah. I can't tell you how into this movie I am. I mean, I almost feel more excited about than I did for The Force Awakens, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I can understand that. That's a valid thought. And I'm very excited for Rogue One, especially after the sizzle reel from Celebration Europe. I picked Episode 8, and here's why. We eventually know what the outcome is of Rogue One, and because we've seen A New Hope. And we also know we've had 4 movies that featured Han Solo as well. But there's a lot of unanswered questions from Episode 7. So
true. So you're saying Rogue One's sort of like Titanic.
Yeah, in a way. It's just I want to see what happens in Rey's story and Finn and Poe and what goes on with those characters, because their story's not over yet. So
graded. Okay.
So that's why I picked that. But I mean, yeah. But the Twitter results were this: 18% chose Rogue One, 2%
very wise.
Yep, 2% chose the young Han Solo movie.
Very wise.
Which
again.
left 80% going with Episode 8.
Well, there you have it. I mean, majorities can never be wrong.
No, never. Especially when they agree with me.
Right. All right. So last we got an email from Darkside MX3, and he says he asks, what are your top 5 Star Wars books? If a series, such as Heir to the Empire, my personal favorite, that counts as one book. I realize Heir to the Empire is not the 3-book series name, but I don't think it has a name, is what he says. But actually, that is called affectionately the Thrawn trilogy, is it not?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. I'm going to go ahead and step up a deck on this one. And in no particular order, I've decided that my 5 favorite Star Wars books so far are A New Dawn, Plagueis, Knight Errant, Dark Lords of the Sith, and then any of the Darth Bane series. I really liked that Darth Bane trilogy. Thought that was really good. So yeah, there's mine.
That's a good list. I agree with a bunch of those, actually. In no particular order. Darth Plagueis is on my list. James Luceno is one of my favorite, probably my favorite Star Wars author. So he's on there easily. The Darth Bane series also makes my top 5.
Wow.
After that, thinking the X-Wing series, Baron Alston and Stackpole, which is, I guess, spans like 7 or 8 novels at that point. That would be there. From the new books, I'm going to add Dark Disciple, and then I'm going to also add Life Debt, which I just read.
Wow. I was teetering with Dark Disciple. I really liked that book a lot.
Yeah, here's the thing. I don't know how many Legends books there were, but I was trying to total it up. 100, 150, I don't know, somewhere around there. There's a lot of those. So trying to narrow it down to 5 was incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
And so I was just thinking, again, I'm glad that he granted us the ability to pick a series as one entry. And so James Luceno was again my favorite author, and so I could really pick almost anything that he's done and put it in there as a single entry.
Siri thought you were talking to her, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. I don't even know why.
You said series.
Star Wars.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right, so I guess those are our answers. Why don't you tell us what your top 5 are, Dark Side MX3, and maybe read some of these and that we recommend, and then come back with us with your thoughts.
Yeah, and I would invite anyone to chip in with their top 3 by sending us an email to sqpod@retrozap.com.
And feel free to call me an idiot, because I most people I've met have, so it's okay if you disagree with me.
I've called you worse.
Yeah, I know.
Well, that is this week's Silence Fools. Well, Texas, that was a lot of Star Wars news to digest this week.
Yeah, I'm really going to need an antacid. The Rebels news was so very spicy.
Yeah. Well, before we go, here's how you can reach us, because we do like to interact with our listeners on social media. If you'd like to find us there, you can follow us on Twitter at SQPod. Darth Taxis is at Darth Taxis, and I can be followed at DJKVER2. We're also on Facebook. And as I mentioned before, it is a lot less interesting, but it's getting better, I promise. We can be found there at facebook.com/SQpod.
It is getting better, Dennis, I will attest. And if you enjoyed the show, and I'm sure you have, please consider leaving a review on iTunes. As any podcast will tell you, 5-star ratings are extremely helpful, always appreciated, but of course, not required, except for us. The added bonus to a good review is that we like to read them on our show. If anything from this show has sparked a thought, we would like to hear it. So email us at sqpod@retrozap.com. The best emails, actually almost all emails, end up in Silence Fools!
And don't forget, we are honored to be part of the RetroZap.com podcast network. And, as we mentioned before, you can find us on episode 79 of Brews and Blasters, which is the flagship show of RetroZap. Then you can find other great shows like Blob of the Hutt, which was just over at Star Wars Celebration Europe, and Kate was with us on our last episode to talk about that. Then there's the Ardcast, the Deucecast movie show, Dunecast, the RetroZap Game Club, Skywalking Through Neverland, which was also on episode 79, Talking Apes TV, Techno Retro Dads, the Trade Federation, We Know Nothing, and the newest addition to the RetroZap network, the Animaniacast.
Hello, nurse!
Right. I just learned that was actually her name. And now for some important legal stuff. So pay attention. Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels is not endorsed, affiliated with, or sponsored by Lucasfilm Limited and Disney. The show is mainly intended for entertainment, so I hope you've been entertained and informational purposes. All characters, music, and sounds are intellectual property of the respective copyright holders. Anything that is left over is our intellectual property, unless otherwise indicated. So that was a busy episode. You got any final thoughts, Taxis?
Yeah, just a little fun fact. Not many people might know, but I think all the Celebration Europe attendees get a special gift this year.
Oh, really? What's that?
Encyclopedia Britannia.
Fun to do bad things.
That's not. Never mind. That will do it for this episode of Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels. Thanks for listening, everyone, and may the Force be with you.
You're Lord Taxus. That's what you told me, anyway.